At the beginning, I would like to tell you as well that our meeting is possible thanks to my scholarship which I received from the European Union Next Generation. And because of that, I went and observed lessons in different countries. And I thought that maybe in the end, it's a good idea to meet with people representing different countries to speak about the education, about the clarinet skills, what we do great, what we can improve, what we can do to make our clarinet life and clarinet music better. So for this reason, we are meeting here today. And I believe that it will be a really great time for everybody. So because it's the discussion panel, so let's feel free, please, to speak, to say everything what you think, because thanks to this we can know your opinion and maybe we can just find something in the end, something what is really important for all of us. So at the beginning, I would like to ask you to present what do you think about the education which you have in your country. So what is really important? What, in your opinion, it's great to share with others. So maybe we can improve something. Maybe we can take something what is good for you to our countries. How looks like the education? So, for example, when children start to play clarinet, and how looks like the academic level? So that would be the most important questions at the beginning. So feel free, who would like to start? Let's feel free. It's not an exam.
Okay. Hello, everybody. I am Griselda from Argentina. Maybe my English is not the best, but I will try to explain the most correctly as possible. And I would like tell you about the manual, the interesting department of children students. It's begin at 9 years old and finish at 14. And for me, it's really interesting share with you about that because we have a team, a few teachers. We only we don't only start with clarinet. Also, we start with lesson of lecture, and they also have a practical with the orchestra and also with the a vocal practice, and they do all the training between 8 and 13 years old, and we have to look for each one of the students, and we follow the how they are learning, and then we decide if they are prepared to go on with the next level, that is the young academy level after 14 years old.
Griselda,
And for us, it's really, yeah.
If I can ask you, so the children start when they
Yeah.
have 8 years old, when they are 8 years old, but they are starting to play clarinet or different instruments, or it's only singing?
No, they start to play all kind of instruments, and then we decide if they are prepared for the clarinet. students, and we have to stay a little for that they really begin with the clarinet. But we try to do as early as possible. I don't know if I'm playing, but we try to that 9 years old. And
And how looks like the academic level? Do you have 3+2 like we have in Europe or something different?
well, it's I think it's different, but we try to teach the basic level. We have 4 years of basic level for young people, and we try to do at least 2 levels for the young people. And then they, when has 14 years old, they can go on with the third level.
Okay. Do you have some
I
questions?
don't know how it's in Europe.
We will tell you in a moment how it looks like. If you have any question to Griselda, so maybe you can ask in this moment. No question.
I actually have a question. So Griselda, in Argentina, if I understand well, the children or the students, they have to learn solfege, right, and rhythm first before being able to choose the instrument. Is that correct?
Yes, sometimes they can do a choice of study a general music, but then we try to go on as fast as possible when they decide the instrument. Sometimes I have to ask for don't give the lesson because they are really small children. Maybe one children of 9 years old is he can or she can test because it's too heavy, and we try to do to look for what is the best moment.
Thank you.
It's clear. Oh, okay.
Yeah, thank you very much, Griselda.
Okay.
Would like to
You're welcome.
Who would like to share with us the education system in your country? Who would like to tell us? Okay. No?
Okay.
Please.
Hello, everybody. My name is Nuno Silva. I'm from Portugal. So in Portugal, we have a huge tradition of wind bands, amateur wind bands. The same, I think the same is in Spain. I see my friends from Spain saying yes. So most of the wind players start as I did when I was 5 years old. We start in a wind band. The wind bands have a huge importance in our country because they are a way of democratization of the music teaching. So a kid that has no money can have lessons for free and have an instrument for free, have lessons for free, and learn music for free, which I think is a huge thing nowadays. And so it's very important in not just artistically or musically, but in the society is very important the role of the wind bands. And then there are some of these kids, they go to the local conservatory and they have like lessons with a professional teacher and they develop normally. And since 30 years ago, the system in Portugal started to create what we call the professional school that leads the kids from, let's say, 12 years old until 18, until college. And this period, it's very crucial. And in the last 30 years with these schools, these kids have like 4 hours a week of contact with the teacher, which creates a huge impact in, especially technically, the kids develop a lot. So when the kids apply for college, they have quite high standard technically. I wouldn't say musically, but I would say technically. They really play the most advanced repertoire of the clarinet when they are 17 or 18. And then this gives the possibility that in college we can fix some problems of embouchure and invest a lot in music making and intelligent music making and try to develop them in that way, because technically they are very advanced when they come to college level. And so this is the revolution that started in my country 30 years ago with the professional schools. There are many around the country, and they have a huge contact with the teacher every week, like 4 hours. And also on top of that, they have like accompanied studies. Means that when they are studying in the school, there's somebody, when they are practicing in the school, there's somebody controlling their practice. Like one day will be the bassoon teacher, another day the flute teacher, another day the clarinet teacher. So they are always in control. And so like the result after 6 or 7 years in this atmosphere creates that when they reach the college level, they are quite developed. And then college level is the same as the other countries in Europe. I think it is 3 years of bachelor and 2 years of master. And Portugal is a very small country, so we have not many universities, but we have some. Like on top of my head, I can think of 6 universities that teach performing music, and then there are another 2 that do just musicology. So basically, this is like in a brief explanation, that's what happens in my country.
And how many lessons students have when they are in college, so the university, because it's the same, right? College, university, you call
Yeah.
it?
Yeah. So I think it varies from the school planning of each school, but I think in my school, because my school is the university that does, it's like a orchestra academy. So we give 1 hour instrument per week plus half an hour of excerpts per week. So I have a contact of 1.5 hours with each student. And then on top of that, they have chamber music, they have orchestra, and they have, of course, the theory classes.
Okay, great. Do you have some questions?
Yeah, Barbara. Hi, everybody. I am Francisco José Fernández from Spain. It's a very, very similar the explanation of Nuno. I would like to ask about the reality in the elemental education. The situation in Portugal is the same in Spain, because the wind band is our topic, but it continues being very, very important, like you has explained it. But in the elemental education from 8 to 12 years, the official education in the conservatories, in the centers, has been substituted, replaced for the wind band in these moments, especially in the regions where have a lot of wind bands like this. I am from the Mediterranean coast, and I think in Andalusia and maybe in Galicia, the schools in the bands are taking the role of the conservatories. In the Portugal is the same question.
No, I don't think, not really. What happens in some areas is that the local conservatory has an agreement with the bands, and they work together, but they are not replacing them. So we have many conservatories. Some are public, some are private, all over the country, and so the kids can have, like, from 6 until 12, they can have lessons there. Some of the kids continue having lessons in the band and in the conservatory at the same time. And the ones that want to continue then go to the professional school. The ones that don't want to continue, they will stop around there, but they will continue playing in the band until later in life.
Yeah.
So
we are brothers. It's the same in Spain. It's the same
system.
So Francisco, if you continue a little bit more, so about the education system, it's like the same, but you, if I could remember, you have like 4 years of bachelor and 1 year master.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. We have the official system have a elemental level with 4 years from 8 to 11. The unprofessional is the word that we use. A professional level from the 12 to 18, and is the similar as the general education, and the superior is a bachelor of 4 years from the 19 to 22, and a posterior year of master. Is not in all the centers, public centers, but each cada vez más, and more is more common. And the hours of class for week in the elemental, it's it has various versions, maybe half hour from an hour. It depends on the center, on the region. In the professional is an hour, maybe at the end of the level is an hour and a half. In the superior is an hour and a half, and the master depends on at week, per week. Sorry for my voice, because I don't speak.
No,
I can't speak.
fine. It's everything fine. It's everything fine. Do you have some questions to Nuno or Francisco? Okay, not
I
now.
do. I do,
yeah,
actually.
perfect.
Barbara.
Perfect, Wesley.
Good. Hi, everyone. I'm Wesley Ferreira. I'm here in the United States. Nuno, it's good to see you.
Good to see you, Wesley.
I have a question for you about you mentioned the professional schools, that some students will be from age 12 to 17. Are some of these schools free, or must the student or their families pay?
They are all free.
Okay. Do they get in by audition, or is it open to anyone?
It's audition. And most of these schools, I would say all of them, are sponsored by the European Community. So they are for free. Students pay nothing, and they have to do audition to get in. And sorry,
you said it was 4 hours a week, so.
And they, in those schools, they also have they do like their academics it's all done in those schools. Like they do Portuguese, mathematics, English, history, and music. So it's a curriculum that's organized for students that want to follow the career as a musician. Basically, they decide they want to be a musician when they are 12. So for me, it's a bit soon. But
A bit.
the reality is that some of them do like that. I give you one example of success. Do you know Carlos Ferreira, the kid that's now won the audition for the Concertgebouw?
Yes.
Carlos Ferreira is an example of what I just said. He started in a band and then went to the Escola Profissional, which is the professional school, and then did the bachelor in Portugal, and then went to study abroad to do a master degree, and then the rest you all know. But so he's like a prototype of what kids do in the musical education in Portugal. He did all the way up from the bottom to the top.
And do you have as well some separate music school? Or it's like music school and normal school, we can say together only?
Yeah, we do the conservatories. And in the conservatory, the kids have music lessons only. And some of them can pursue a career in music, some not. But it's not so, the musical curriculum is not so heavy. They have 1 hour a week of instrument. They have chamber music. They have history of music, but it's not so intense, let's say.
Okay.
In Spain is different. It's similar but different because el horario.
The schedule.
The
timetable.
the time in the professional is a bit too stressing. Es demasiado exigente. Too demanding. And the education, the general education and the music education is separated, but in the last years se está intentando is trying to connect in other ways. For example, I have twins. The twins has studied music and has studied in the bachelor, but in the general education has tried an optional way to para profesionalizarse en la música.
Okay, so what they do is at school they have only part of the subjects. They've got English, history, and some of them, and they do all the subjects at the conservatory. And they need to pass the conservatory in order to get their school certificate.
But it is a way not frequent and not normal. It's only normalmente la usan solamente aquellos que están muy decididos.
It's only for students who really want to continue with their music studies.
But the law lo permite ahora.
But the law allows that now.
Thank you for my one.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so who would like to continue?
I have some question for Nuno. Sorry.
Katia, okay, first.
Yeah. Only the kids. Because our country, Spain. I am from Chile, but Spain and Portugal is very similar. So maybe also the capitals, because here in Chile, the only way to be a good professional is study here in Santiago, the capital of Chile. Is the same in Portugal? Because I know you and I know the Maestro Sayote, but if somebody lives far away of the capital, Lisbon, is the same? Is the same level, or it's more?
Yeah, it's normal that there are more opportunities in Lisbon or in Porto, but Portugal is a very small country. Like if you get in the car, you are very close to Lisbon or to Porto. In 2 hours or 3 hours, you reach the entire country. So it's not very far away. But that's true that the
Okay, I hope Nuno will continue.
Uy,
Mhm.
Maybe not.
no.
Yeah. So maybe in a moment. We can continue.
Katia, in the Spain is similar to Portugal, but it's obvious that in the capitals is the especially Madrid and Barcelona is the best
Yeah.
clarinet player, but in the regions are the same opportunities to study, and the level it depends on the center, but in general we have good teachers in the different centers.
Yeah.
In fact, a lot of students um, salen o de la periferia, come from the
They live.
peripheral regions, and at the end come to the Madrid, to the Barcelona, especially, but in the peripheria is a good level. Obvious the best clarinet
Thank you.
players as in Madrid, in Barcelona.
But I know some really great clarinet from, I don't know, Andalusia or
Yeah, obvious. Yeah, in
you are very
Sevilla,
strong
very
school.
bravos clarinetistas. In Valencia, from my region,
Yeah,
too.
also,
In
yeah,
Galicia also.
yeah,
Es a
also,
bastante,
yeah, yeah, I know.
bastante,
You are very strong.
yeah.
Yeah, I know.
No, do you hear us?
The connection.
I don't know what.
Hello?
Thank you both for the answer.
Okay, so maybe Christine, you wanted to tell us, so maybe now it's the space for you.
Oh, great. First of all, thanks for having me here, Barbara. It's great to see some familiar faces and some new faces too. Basically, I mean, I've lived in so many different countries, so I've been very fortunate to be able to experience different educations, right? So I did do my Fulbright in Portugal. So in regards to everything that Nuno talked about with the education system, the bandas filarmónicas playing such a strong role in the education of, young performers, And one of the things that I would like to add on too is not, we talk about these structures, right? In regards to how we learn, right? Being able to rely on those aspects. But one of the things that I would also argue is the personalities and you could say how exigent, right? The teachers are in being able to, inspire the best aspects of, that particular person that you're working with, right? Because when we think about the idea of music, yes, education nowadays is so difficult. A majority of my education in music came from the United States. So it's actually quite different. I know Nuno talked about the idea of starting at age 5 or age 6, right? For the clarinet, typically you would be introduced to this instrument, maybe age 9 or age 10, depending on the state that you're from, right? Just in part because the United States is so big, depending on the program of the school, right? And it's because of the vastness of the country, not there's some inconsistencies, right? Like there's, for example, Texas is really known for, having a strong band tradition, right? Because of the idea of marching band, right? But what I could definitely tell you, taking these different experiences, because I also studied clarinet in France, right? So, being in a situation where, the lessons are not individual, it was the same in Portugal too. A lot of the time you would be watching the lesson of a colleague, right? And being able to learn from that colleague, and even though it may not be like, okay, this is 1 hour and 30 minutes or 1 hour lesson, the whole idea of this observation, of watching other performers, other clarinet players, is more than likely you're playing the same repertoire. So the whole idea, at least from the time I was in Portugal, was being able to learn from each of my colleagues who may or may not be, competing for a competition, being able to take note of, what they're doing, what the teacher's saying, and being able to do that, which I think, I feel like in a sense, having that type of North American education, which is great. I'm not knocking it off. I mean, I live in Canada, right? Type of thing. But, being able to understand the value of being able to observe other performers and, other, students too, and not feeling that sense of animosity, right? Because I mean, there is like a level of competition to a degree, but being able to understand that those are the different spaces of where we would learn, right? So I know we're talking a lot about structures, but I could definitely tell you, having studied with Antonio Sayo, it's not, I mean, like when I was, I think it was almost 10 years ago, the idea of, the teacher also, like the quality of the personality, the quality of, the insistence of being able to say, you need to know all your scales, you need to play your excerpts, you need to do, learn all of the repertoire that you need, playing a big role, like to the quality of education that we do receive. So those are just my 2 cents.
Thank you very much, Christine. Some questions to Christine, maybe?
I'll just jump in, Christine, and say it'll be interesting as this discussion goes forth to maybe have your perspective about these differences between the countries that you've lived in and studied. I know I see Christine and Evan and Cornell and myself were mostly familiar with how students begin and how they study clarinet in the United States and Canada, which is very similar. I grew up in Canada and now I live and work in the United States. And as Christine pointed out, our students mostly start around 9 or 10 years old. So, and all of our music education happens within the public school system mostly. So usually around 5th or 6th grade, depending on the state you live in, you'll be introduced to an instrument. And then you'll learn the clarinet within the band system in your school. And really it's the band director that's teaching the class of instruments, and you're put in a level, whether it's 6th grade or 7th grade, 8th grade, you're in the same level with musicians of the same age, but also who are typically at the same level as you. And really the students here are learning in school through bands. Sometimes they'll get private lessons, but it's mostly something that whether they pay for themselves, if their families can seek lessons from a clarinet teacher outside of school, that sometimes happens. Sometimes the high schools or the middle schools, the band programs, are wealthy enough or get support enough that they can help to provide lessons. They bring in experts or professionals to come into the schools to teach the students individual lessons. But for me, I teach at a university, at Colorado State University, and we really get students who come into the academic level or the college or university level, having gone through middle school and then high school. And some come after having a few years of lessons, some come never having had lessons, and some students have had lessons for many, many years. So we see a lot of variety of abilities sometimes and people's experience with music. I mean, I'll let Evan and maybe Cornell and Christine kind of also jump into this if I left out anything.
Can I say?
I'll be happy to say a few.
Okay.
Hello?
Sorry.
Yes.
I was just commenting because I also studied in America. I did my master degree in America, and so the difference I notice from America to here is that when in Europe a kid is studying in a master degree or even in a bachelor degree, that kid already decided in his head that he wants to be a musician, and that in most cases that decision was taken some years before. And what I noticed in America is that some of my colleagues at university, they still at that level, they haven't decided if what they wanted to do. They have like a system that allows to have the double major, like doesn't exist here. We don't have that. So like you can be doing engineering and music, and then 3 years later or 4 years later decide if you want to be a musician or an engineer. And we don't have this possibility here, which I think is a pity. I think it should be this should be possible. But I think a big difference is that choices are made a lot later in America than in Europe about career. That's the idea that I got from my experience.
I would definitely agree in regards to what Nuno had mentioned, in part because nowadays with the education and all the changes that are happening in the actual education outside of the music part, right, or the music education, the problem sometimes that we have, to kind of add more to what Nuno has mentioned, is not only the idea of this later decisions, right, which could be good or bad. I'm not saying it's either or, but also the emphasis of the culture, right? When we think about this idea of the value, how are students perceiving music, from the schools, from the system that they're learning from, and how are they able to take those interests and being able to do it in a productive way, right? And it's sometimes it's a disadvantage because imagine if you're 12 or 13 years old and you said, this is what I want to do, and then you're able to make so much progress with this mindset. But sometimes there are limitations, the idea of like being able to explore double majors. I double majored. I know for a fact that when I double majored in history and music, things moved a little slower for me because of the fact that I was also doing, two different types of study that required a lot of time. But, I feel like, also too, I think earlier we were talking about levels. When we think about the idea of level versus, actual, development as a human being, sometimes we forget that it's also about the experiences of culture that actually make it so that we become complete musicians, that we're able to appreciate not only the idea of music but also art, theater, things that we may not have access to every day.
Cornell, I saw that you wanted to say something before.
Yes, can you hear me? Can you hear me
Yes,
well?
yes, perfectly.
Okay, hi everyone. My name is Cornel, and I originally come from Poland, where I got my elementary, high school, and partially my music academy education on the clarinet. And then I studied partially in Paris and then New York and then Indiana and then Toronto. And eventually I ended up staying in Canada. And now I teach at the University of Queens. So I just would like to speak just for a little bit to what Christine said and Wesley before, because North America, has a lot to offer, but the thing is that the culture of countries, these countries are very spread out, and not everyone, even nowadays, has equal access to high culture. Let's call it high culture for a lack of a better word for it. Like, for instance, children to be exposed to or symphony orchestra, for instance, somewhere out in the prairies, of Canadian prairies or U.S. prairies, or seeing, a multitude of performances on clarinet and so on and so on. So when the child goes to, let's say, elementary school and then later gets to a band, thank God for bands. Where would we be without bands, right? Sometimes they only have the band once or twice a week, depending on the province, depending on the program. Very often they are just handed the clarinet and they are told, good luck, because very often the band director is extremely busy running those bands. And it's not that children, on average, get individual attention, from the teachers. So they just come to the band, they put the clarinet together, they play, they struggle, and so on. And then they do not get the best introduction, let's say, to the clarinet. So then, if they want to deepen their studies, they have to, on the clarinet, they have to seek it outside of the public school system. So they do need to go and find a private tutor. And this can become, first of all, inconvenient because they have to go out there and find it. And then, second of all, expensive, right? So, for instance, to those privileged students who can afford private lessons, good for them. They come much more prepared for their entrance examinations to universities. But majority of students that we see, at least in our university, yes. Did someone want to say something? I'm sorry. I heard a voice in the middle of my sentence.
No, we just hear
Okay.
you.
Okay, so then majority of the students who did not have the privilege of having private lessons throughout their elementary or high school, they come to audition to the university, and as Wesley said, a lot of them never had a private lesson. And now there is a fundamental problem that we face in higher education in North America is, what do you do when you have students who come in who did not have enough or at all private lessons? Like, how do you structure their first year, or how do you structure the admission to the program so you give them an opportunity to get in and to prove themselves and to so this is a very complex problem that we are facing right now that speaks directly to socioeconomic situation of our students and where they are from. Relatively, it's relatively easier to get higher education, a better education in Europe at an earlier stage of education. I am myself an example of such because I was able to go to elementary school and at the same time to music school, both of them being publicly, subsidized by the state. So I started learning music at the age of, 5, and every day or every other day I was, in a regular school, and then in the afternoon I was in a music school, and it was an incredible investment in a young person to deliver on that, by the state. But it really contributed to the fact that I was able to choose my profession at much earlier stage. As Nuno said, students are, making their choices of their career much early. But now, we are facing a completely different situation on a completely different continent for myself. And I just wanted to drop these few words to the conversation that right now universities in North America, they very often go as far to accommodate new students, incoming students, as to remove some criteria from entrance of the auditions, to let them play whatever they can to see if they have potential and where they're at, and to meet them at their level, which I think it's fair. However, it does present a problem with the teaching curriculum, how far to take them from where they are to their fourth year of bachelor's, or what's the pace of their education is going to be, what materials they need to have in order to progress, and so on and so on and so on. So this is what we face in North America. So this is my 5 cents. Thank you so much, Barbara.
Thank you very much, Cornel. So, Evan, would you like to add something more?
Yeah. Hi, I'm Evan Lynch. I'm in the United States. I'm in Ohio at the moment. I've lived all over the country, though. It's so great to hear Cornel saying everything he just said, because I'm struggling with all those things at the moment with my own students and my own university, because it is very different, and really it comes down to money and who can afford to be a musician in this country from a very young age until the university. I will say my university, we're a private university, and we have a lot of freedoms to do anything we want. And we're trying to figure out a way that works best for our students, because the levels are so different from those that come in. And my university encourages students to double major and have minors and do all sorts of other things. At the moment, for some of our lower level students that come in, we make adjustments for the audition. They get in at a low level. We've put in a second year check mark, like certain benchmarks they have to reach by the second year in order to continue on and complete the 4-year bachelor's degree. And it's a very fluid process right now. It's not exactly nailed down to something we all 100% agree with. But I don't know. I think that is at least something nice. And if the student just really hasn't made a certain amount of progress or reached that point, I think it's probably best. It's only a 4-year degree halfway through. And they can move on to other things. And at least at my university, it's a liberal arts college, so they can choose other things in a related field. Just maybe I'm thinking mostly is the music performance side of things. Maybe that's not the degree for them. But yeah, it's a very interesting struggle. And then real quick, I haven't heard mentioned too much about beyond the bachelor's degree in the United States. At least in my experience, what I see is common. There's the 4-year bachelor's degree, and then there's a 2-year master's degree, and that's really where you go and focus in really specifically on clarinet playing. 2 years of master. And then there's 3-year, I think it depends on the school, but approximately 3-year doctorate degree coming after that, which you pick a very, very specific topic in the clarinet world and you study. But of course, it's also about honing in, refining your playing skills and your teaching skills to go on and teach at the university level. And then there's also the option of the artist diploma, which is a 1-year program some students take after their master's degree or even after their doctorate degree, and just 1 year further studying of just playing the clarinet at a university. I think a lot of universities in the country offer that as well. Yeah. Thoughts?
Thank you very much, Evan. Okay. Antonio, hello. It's great that you join us.
Thank you. Thank
Would
you.
you like
Ciao to everybody.
Would you like to share us how it looks like in Italy? Education system, how it looks?
Yes, of course. So we have in Italy a lot of conservatories, maybe more as 80 conservatories in all Italy. And our education is bachelor plus master degree. We don't have doctorate. We just start with doctorate courses. And the admissions for the bachelor for the students are not so strong because we have a program that the students can choose pieces that maybe they think is the better for the students. This is for the bachelor, and in the bachelor, the students can apply after the secondary school, and in the secondary school is a first education, clarinet education, and before the secondary school, we have a primary school with clarinet courses. So the young peoples can choose to go first in the primary and after in the secondary school and after in bachelor, or maybe they can choose to apply directly in the conservatory. This is another way. And during the 3 years bachelor course in Italy, we have a lot of methods, but I think it's really famous in the world. Cavallini is really famous in the world. Magnani, it's not Mangani, but Magnani. It's two different composers. And then we have Stark, Robert Stark, and more. We have studies from Paul Jean-Jean. This is the study. Studies in Italy are really important. I know that this is not the same in all the world, but the Italian school have a great tradition about this. And so in my experience in masterclass abroad, I have a lot of contact with the young peoples, and I ask them if they know these studies, and a lot of people say no because we we go directly on the repertoire. Okay, but this is another way, educational way, but in Italy, so for us, it's really important that all the technical knowledge is coming from the studies and not from the repertoire. And after students, no, not after, in the same time, the students have the chance, of course, to practice the great repertoire of the clarinet, classical composers and romantic composer and so on. So. And at the end of the bachelor, the students have an applying exam for the master degree, and it's not automatic. Maybe the students stop it in the bachelor and can go in the master. Yeah, this is our our way for our students. We have in my conservatory, I'm professor in Bari, Niccolò Piccini Conservatory. This is in Sad, Italy. This is one of the biggest conservatory in Italy because we have two big conservatories in Italy. Is Bari for South Italy and Milano for North Italy. We have 4 clarinet professors, and each one have 12 students. So we have a lot of students of clarinet because in my part of Italy are really famous the wind bands. So we have a lot of requests for this. So this is what's happened in Italy.
Thank you very much, Antonio. Do you have some questions, maybe? Okay, so I have question to you, because we spoke about the education, and mostly what I heard from you, it was like bachelor, master, or maybe everything together. But really, the hardest point is if the person would like to be a musician or not. So if you're teaching and you receive some information, okay, I would like to be a musician, and I would like, after my study, I would like to find a job as a clarinet player. So how can you support this kind of the person? What do you do? What is your main goal in this moment when you have this really sure information?
So we have two different problems. The first problem is what the students wish to do after the studies. And the other question is the job. So students, of course, wish to can play in the future in the orchestra, or can teach in a school, or can do concerts and can have a career, an artistic career. The problem is the orchestras are not so a lot of orchestras, and schools are not so a lot of schools. But in Italy, we have so a lot of fantasy, and students open private schools, for example, or other students after master degree can apply for the military bands, for example. Of course, not everyone can go in the military band, but everyone search a way. So students from my conservatory are really enthusiastic about the clarinet study. But of course, not everyone have great numbers to can work in the music in the future. So of course we have a great responsibility for this. So when I speak with the students, I say to the students, okay, you are a good student, but the level in the world is really high. So you need to study hard, and of course, your study is not only bachelor and master, but you know to go in the master class, to have contact. You need to have experience for concerts, for auditions in the orchestra. So a lot of students of me was in the audition. So after the first audition, they cry, "Oh, professor, this is a disaster. Please, you can help me." Oh, yes, I can help you. I give you another book so you can continue your study, because it's important that if you have a goal, you need to have patience. You need to study every day, and maybe in the future you can have a goal for your career or for your future. But of course, my opinion is this situation is not only in the music. This situation is for all jobs. And the young people know this exactly. But I can help the students maybe to realize the dream for the music, So we can do what is possible, but we don't can do what is impossible. And this is my this is my suggestion for all students. Okay, you are really good, but you need to practice every day, please.
Thank you very much, Antonio.
You're
Who would
welcome.
like to share with us as well?
I can say that.
Can I say a word?
Can you hear me? Sorry.
Yes, yes.
In with the way our industry is now, it's a lot different from what it was when I was 22 or 23. I got my job in the orchestra when I was 23. And at that time, when I was a student, if I didn't get a job in an orchestra like in my country, I was a failure. Like that was what was going like that was what people thought about career in music is like, or you get a job in an orchestra or you failed. And the reality 30 years later, it's not like that anymore, because I know so many good musicians that don't play in an orchestra. Some of them, they don't play in an orchestra because they don't want to. It's not because they can't, it's because they have another choice. They want to do something different. They don't like to be playing for a conductor every day. They don't like the traveling of tours. They don't like the time to be in an orchestra. So it's life changed, and I think the students are a bit more open minded about careers, and this is good. And so, like, what I try to do with my students is to help them to open their mind and their eyes, and explain that orchestra job is not it's not the only job possible, that they have to open their minds to and be imaginative and have fantasy, to create their own jobs, to create their own future. And so I think that's the importance of my job. At least that's the way I see it. It's two open ways and not two closed ways. I try to give them opportunities and make them think that you are owner of your future. You have to create your future. You have to be imaginative. And like that, I think they have more chances to create something. Because if I make a pressure on them, like, you have to be an orchestra musician, otherwise you are a failure, then that's I will have a class full of failures, because the orchestras, as Antonio said, there are not many orchestras. There are less and less orchestras in the world because of economical reasons, and jobs are not many, and so, like, we have to be open-minded about future. So that's the way I approach this subject. Of course, some students want to do auditions for orchestra and want to play in an orchestra, and I am a teacher in a university of orchestra academy, so of course I prepare them for that. And over these 30 years, I have students that got jobs in orchestras, but it's a minority. It's like, I've been teaching for 30 years, and I have maybe I don't know, 10 students that got jobs in orchestras, not more, which is normal because the world is not that big. And in the orchestra, we have like 2 clarinets or 3 or 4 clarinets, not more. It's not like violins. So that's our industry.
Thank you very much, Nuno. Francisco, would you like to share with us? Because I know that in Spain it's as well really hard to get the job. So how do you deal with it and with your students?
I think the situation is that in the all the world is very difficult for working. But it depends on the level of the work. If you think about the one work like Nuno estaba diciendo,
Was saying.
was saying, in the orchestral soloist or in the education, the conservatory top is very difficult because we have a system a bit closed. But for the young people, the School of Music in the wind bands is very is very dynamic, and is a work not very good paid, but permite
it
allows continues the study, and when the student is really convinced that he wants to become music, is a possibility to combinar to combine the first steps in the professional world and continue with the study, and maybe it's a possibility. And in the last time, the wind band always has been a very un vivero de trabajo, bueno, una forma de trabajar, porque había muchas.
It's been a way of working.
Because it has been a lot of work in the wind band in Spain, but in the wind band is military and civil, but the military bands is practically
disappearing.
And the civil is it depends on the city, but it is step by step for more and more difficult. Is we have a lot of students and poco trabajo. Few jobs of work. At the end, it's I think todo se convierte en una carrera de resistencia.
It's just a long distance run.
And the student, when finish the superior studies, if cree en sí mismo y continúa,
if they believe in themselves and continue,
puede llegar. He can arrive, but it is very, very difficult. In Spain, it's the same. It's step by step is more and more and more difficult.
Okay, thank you, Francisco. Maybe somebody would like to say something more positive. Is there any option?
I would like to say something more positive if possible. Yeah, I think life has this amazing way of sorting things out for us. Doesn't matter, doesn't matter what we do, what our students do. Life, to a certain extent, will sort things out. I always say to my students that it's important to have plans. It is important to try to pursue them. However, we also need to gracefully accept whatever the life will bring. And we know how to educate a clarinetist, how to make a professional clarinetist. And that's okay. But, I also try to be very mindful about what does success really mean to our students. And for some students, the success will be to win an audition to a top orchestra. For other students, success is to be a competent teacher, to become a competent teacher. And for some other students, the definition of success is to be able to sit down and play once a week in a community band, community ensemble, and keep the music in their lives. Another confusing part is that those three types of students, let's say I have in the same program, right? And it is my responsibility to recognize their individual abilities and try to support them as best as possible so their goals are met. So definitely that is the responsibility of a modern teacher more than ever before, because as I said before, we know how to pave the way artistically and technically for someone who wants to become a professional performer, because we've watched, and it's very, very difficult right now to have a career, whatever that means to someone. Now, that's one thing that I wanted to bring up, and another is here's something that I would like to open a short conversation for us as a clarinet community. Parts of teaching have been very well standardized. Like we have objective standards for accomplishment as far as technique is involved. For instance, we can explain to a student that playing the right notes at the right time, at the right speed, with the correct fingering is a standard of excellence. It can be a standard of excellence. Then we have a metronome, and that metronome shows exactly what the beat is. And that is an objective standard, in teaching finger technique, let's say. Then there is a pitch, and then we have a tuner. And again, we are able to introduce a particular standard of teaching of what is, considered playing in tune. In my career as a performer and as a teacher, I see that there is very often not enough objective standards when it comes down to explaining issues of the embouchure. And that's what worries me, because I see that very often we are losing young players due to the lack of standard objectives as far as forming the correct working and healthy embouchure. They cannot get through, the frustration of squeaking or fighting the instrument literally, because it's very difficult to play when the embouchure is not correctly set up. Studying with different teachers in different countries and observing master classes and other ways of teaching embouchure brings a similar conclusion over and over again, that teaching the embouchure is often done in an anecdotal style. And I think it is very important to us as a clarinet community to have an open discussion about the possibility of trying to attempt some sort of an objective guidelines to that super important aspect of playing, which is and teaching most of all of the embouchure. I think we have so much important research on the embouchure done that it needs to be more well known. We need to know and understand more of it so we don't lose young players very often due to the lack of a proper skill, and also to avoid frustration and to better up our communal, way of how we teach this important subject. So I just wanted to hear some of your thoughts on that, and what is the, like if we were to come up with 10 commandments, of teaching the proper embouchure, and how would we go about it, and how would we even start this conversation as a community? That would be super interesting to me. I know that the time is limited here, but if we could continue this conversation, even through emails or exchange of messages, it would be very valuable to me personally. So if you could comment, I would be very grateful. If not, we can stay in touch via email. Thank you.
Would like to answer Cornel's question.
I
Well,
I can comment what Cornell said, and I agree with him. Especially, I'm talking about referring about what he said in the end of his comment about the embouchure and the way embouchure is taught, and this is something that I'm concerned also in the. I've been always concerned with that, and I I tried to, and I don't like the idea of when I go to a master class or when I teach my students. I don't like the idea of give ambiguous guidance and things that if you do this for 6 months, maybe it will work. This is for me. This is not the way. This is not serving. Let's say, and I think we should have more concrete things. And all my teaching in the last, let's say, 20 years has been guided in that direction to give the students objective advice that they can use and they can see and feel results. They feel informed. And so I even wrote a book about that. And unfortunately, it's only in Portuguese for now. Maybe I will translate it sometime. But at least, of course, we are all professionals, and if you read my book, possibly you will agree with some things that I said. Maybe you don't agree with others, but that's how it is. I mean, we have different approach, but at least I created something that's not ambiguous. And I agree with Cornell when he says that this is a very rich subject and it's very important for music making. And it's often taught in a way that's very ambiguous, let's say. Of course, then it's a very broad subject because the idea of sound, like what's a good sound for each one of us, it's very different. And so the way we teach the embouchure will be also different. But I think there's some common ground in even with the difference of ideal sound. There is some common ground that should be explained in a way that's more objective, I think. But I agree totally with Cornell's worries. I also feel the same.
Thank you very much, Nuno. Somebody else?
Yes, maybe. Can I?
Of course.
Okay. Okay. Yes, of course. I know the book of Nuno, and I agree of all what is right there. And I agree with Cornell, of course. And changing ideas and changing opinions about the education on our students is really important. I can say, of course, now in this moment is a great mode. The mode is if I have good fingers and if I can play really fast, I'm the best. Maybe the music is in the second part of the attentions, but we know altogether that music maybe is the most important part of a musician, the inspirations or all what is important for a good interpretation. Okay, so but we are members of the jury in the competitions, for example, and we become a great influence about the speed, about the control of the sound. Maybe this is a point that we can discuss together why a Mozart concerto with a metronome of 120 is better as a Mozart concerto with the metronome 110, for example. Of course, everyone have an opinion. Everyone have experience. Everyone have some ideas about the interpretation, and it's really complicated. And it's not complicated for our points because we work in the music, but it's really complicated for the students. So the students asked me every time, what can I do better so I can play better and I can see the best in a competition, for example. I don't have an answer about this. It's really difficult. It's impossible to can give really the best indication because it's important the personality of our students. It's important what they feel in the moment that they are in performance. It's important the emotion. It's important the control of the personality. So we have a lot of components, and this is really difficult. I mean, so I feel this responsibility in front of the students. And great is that I can speak with colleagues about these points because it's important to know other views, other ideas, other approaches about this. So I'm really thanks to Barbara for this opportunity.
Thank you very much, Antonio. To sum up a little bit what we said here, so I see I would like to say problem, but I would like to say challenge. Maybe for us, for all of us, that when we have students, because all of us we have, so maybe we can try to even more open their mind that there is not only one way to be a musician, like Nuno or Francisco told, and Cornel as well, that there is, for example, not only playing in the orchestra, because there is not so many orchestras. Maybe there is not so many places in a conservatory to teach, but there are some other opportunities. So, for example, I totally agree that there are some people who doesn't want to play in the orchestra, but for example, they would like to be a teacher, and probably there will be really good teachers because they are really patient, what is of course really important, especially when we work with children. I think it's really important because when we try to see only the black part of our profession, so that there is not so many places for a future, so there is not so many places for working. So then maybe there will be a problem in the future that we will not have students. So I think that's why it's important that we open the mind, the young persons. And I totally agree on Cornel with you as well about the embouchure. For me, the embouchure as well, it's connected with the sound. And for me as well, it's not important if it's dark sound or bright sound. For me, it's important the quality of the sound, and I think it's a really important topic to speak about it as well. Like Antonio told about the interpretation. If the Mozart 110, it's better than 120 or opposite. So what is the goal? I think as well that music is fortunately or unfortunately the subjective something subjective. So, for example, for me, black could be better for somebody else, white could be better. So being in the middle, maybe it's something what create the success. So I would like to thank you very much for the meeting today. I think now I don't know how do you feel, but I think that now I know a little bit more how it looks like in your countries, what problems we see, what challenge we see, what is our strength with the education and as well with the skills. I would like to meet you again to speak as well about the embroidery, like Cornel started already, and about the interpretation, even the most important pieces in our repertoire, like Brahms, Mozart, and for sure some others pieces. So I hope it's not our last meeting. Maybe it's only the first meeting. So I hope to see you soon. And again, thank you very much for this meeting today.